I'm limping as my wife kicked me before I left. So and meet with our guests that we're meeting with here in Little Rock. You know, I spent some time today with legislators and with Bud and Randy, and it's a great pleasure just to be among what America is. I mean, you just think about it. You see all this highbrow, elevated egos associated with everything in Washington. But the fact is, that ain't what the country's made of. It's not made of Nancy Pelosi's and Donald Trump's. It's made of us. And what the one thing that keeps coming back to me is they have power because we give it to them. And that's been lost on them. And our founders, you know, one of the things I said when the President's Commission on Fiscal Responsibility was done, and then President Obama didn't do anything with it, is the fact is we're never going to cheat history until the people of this country get to start making the decisions. And we didn't give up our power to make our decisions for our daily lives. We didn't give up the power to make decisions for our state or our city or our county. We gave and created the federal government so that it would have a limited focus on what it did. And that focus mainly was to protect this country, to support the rule of law, to limit itself, to support virtue, and to create enterprise that would allow free economic expansion. If you think about those principles, they've done everything but that. And so we find ourselves worried about the future for our kids. I mean, I'm not in this to be traveling around at 71 years of age with a bum leg because it's fun. It's not. I'm in this because I got 9 grandkids, and everybody else in this room's got some, and everybody else in Oklahoma and Arkansas has got some, and we have an obligation to do what's best for our country because there's a lot of sacrifice made to give us those opportunities. That's right. And to not take care of that, to not do what we can do to solve the problem that our founders gave us the way to solve, means that we really don't care. And so everybody I talk to, whether it's a legislator or somebody else, and they poo-poo what we're doing, I said, well, what's your plan? Do you really think we're doing great? I mean, I haven't ever had anybody tell me that. I actually did, 4.5 years ago, have a legislator in South Carolina said, we're doing great. I said, well, how do you measure it? He said, well, I've got two, what's the big donut chain that got so fancy? Krispy. I got 2 Krispy Kremes and I'm doing great. I said, that's exactly the problem. You're looking after you instead of our country. And the oath of every state legislature isn't an oath to their state. It's an oath to our Constitution, for our freedom, for our liberty, for the opportunity to be able to grow and everybody benefit. So what's really happened is we have to take back the power we've loaned to Washington, which they have now doubled down on and taken power that was never theirs. Yep. And the way we do that is the peaceful way through an Article 5 convention. And you watch what happens. You watch what happens when we get to 20 or 24 states. Congress is going to get busy. Because they don't want their power limited, even though they've expanded power far beyond what we ever gave them. And they did that through federal judges. So Article 5 Convention of the States, it's about us restoring our country. It's not about revolution. It's about restoring our country to the balance of power that was intended, to the limited power of the federal government, and to the free power of the states to actually do that. We did a study while I was in the Senate on highways in Oklahoma. Because, you know, the federal government takes your money from gas and then gives you some of it back. But then they have all these rules and regulations on what you got to do if you're using their money to build a highway. So I got Gary Ridley, who was then the Secretary of Transportation, to run a study on 10 miles of highway that was built all with Oklahoma money, and 10 miles of highway that was built with federal money and federal rules and federal regulation. It cost 50% more to build a highway using federal money than it did to use state money. Well, first of all, that's asinine. Number two is it belies common sense. There was a book written about 10 years ago called The Death of Common Sense. There's a new book coming out right now. It's Trying Common Sense. Same guy, a guy by the name of Philip Howard. Really some smart ideas in there. And I called him, he asked me to pre-read the book and tell him. I said, well, how do you do what you recommend? He said, well, we just got to get it done. I said, no, the way you get it done, what you're recommending is through a convention of states. Because they're never going to do it. I'll give you a couple examples and then I'll be through and we'll talk questions. And I too want to thank you for being here. I love our country, you do too. The only way we keep it and protect it is for us to get engaged to do that. And you're the example of that. And I forgot what the example I was going to give you. Anyway, oh, I know what it was. Right before I left Congress in the Senate, 2014 was my last, I had done this big study where I had all my staff go all across Oklahoma, every job training program that the federal government ran. And after the federal government agencies started finding out what I was doing, they gave instructions to all the people not to talk to my staff. So here's a federal government agency telling their people not to talk to the staff of a U.S. senator. Well, that even really picked me. So then I really got after it. So what we discovered is there were 48 job training programs in America costing $15.4 billion a year. Each one of them with its whole administration, whole management, the whole work. And what the GAO said is none of them produce long-term jobs for anybody. But what they do produce is jobs for people in the job training program. So I went back and I published that report, sent it to a whole bunch of congressmen, got everybody excited, so they were going to reform it. You know what they reformed it down to? 42 job training programs that still don't do anything that cost $14.5 billion a year. So if we really think Congress will ever fix itself, it won't. And the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, says at least $400 billion a year. Now remember, that's 80 times the amount of, no, it's 28 times the amount of money Arkansas will spend this year as a state in its government. It's never going to happen until we force it to happen. And you're the tool. If I go cut a tree down, I can't cut a tree down by saying I'm going to cut a tree down. Yeah, I got to have a saw. And if I have a hand saw, I'll do it that way. But if somebody gives me a power saw, like 10 million volunteers, I'll get that tree cut down a whole lot faster. So your job is to grow this thing. We're going to pass in Arkansas this year. I can feel it in my blood. And we're going to pass in 7 or 8 other states. It's going to be a wake-up call to the rest of the people involved with this that you can do it. And we're seeing the leadership from you all and your state leaders that will get it done, and especially our legislators. We had a great meeting today with legislators. We had great questions. The reason it didn't pass the House is they weren't educated on it. They didn't know. People in Arkansas are just like people in Oklahoma. You got maybe not as good a football team, but
wait till next
year. And most of Arkansas care. And they want their country back too.
That's right.
So you all are how we're going to do it. We're going to get it done. Thank you, and God bless you all. Representative Gary, anything to say?